This JiDion's situation, it's got people on the internet freaking out, sounding off, and also saying that it actually exposes a much bigger problem. Right? If you're not familiar with JiDion, we'll call him a reformed YouTube prankster turned predator catcher. And he's been at the center of this just very humiliating controversy that he put himself into, and it has him now saying,
I'm never gonna stream again. Genuinely, I love streaming, but it's just too much bad comes with it.
And to fully understand and appreciate the situation we're in now and what this means for even more people moving forward, it's important to know that he has kind of had a dramatic arc over the past several years. Right? Starting as a prankster in 2019, or as other people would call it, a public nuisance streamer who kind of harassed people for clicks. And over the next few years, he'd go viral for things like pretending to kidnap a kid, encouraging people to say racial slurs, disrupting college classrooms, that kind of thing. Right? And so you had him getting kicked out of large events. He got permabanned from Twitch a few years ago, and he's apologized more than once for his behavior. But then you have all of this reaching a new level last month in the small town of Woodhaven, Michigan. Because fellow YouTuber JiDion, he claimed that his Uncle Joe, he'd been financially exploiting and abusing his grandmother, or Joe's mother, for a decade by squatting at her house despite warnings from the family to leave. And so in a plan to force Joe out, he had JiDion move into the house, and it actually seemed to work. Right, with Joe seeming to flee to a local McDonald's, but JiDion, their crew, and a handful of fans, they followed him there. So Joe, he calls the cops. An officer then tells them, hey, y'all have to leave or you're gonna be arrested for trespassing, since the McDonald's doesn't want them there either. But they then appear to kind of just stand on the sidewalk, continuing to yell and talk to drivers entering the lot. And then a couple of their crew members try to go inside the restaurant, which is when the cops whipped out the handcuffs.
Wait, so what have you done? Breach of peace.
Breach of peace?
Breach of peace, stalking, trespassing.
Bro, this is the made I've seen in my life. This is a violation of rights. This is a violation. You cannot arrest somebody that never went inside and was never trespassed. Now, they are arrested children that never went inside of a McDonald's. Call the DA and see how fast that gets dropped.
He's yelling, so he's being disorderly.
You're under arrest for being disorderly.
Freedom of speech. You can yell on the sidewalk.
Sitting here causing a scene.
Do you want to waste your DA's time? I am a multi-millionaire. I promise you, I can take this as far as you want.
I don't understand all this, dude. Like, over nothing. Like, something so stupid over some, YouTube views.
And so JiDion, he's been charged with breach of peace and stalking. The pretrial set for next week, and he says that he spent 6 figures on legal fees. And while he's actually facing jail time, though, I don't think he's actually gonna get it. The bigger risk for him, potentially, is his reputation is now in tatters. Because you see, a couple of years ago, he apparently decides, hey, I'm gonna turn my act around. He supposedly has this come to Jesus moment in the back of an Uber.
I was with my girl. We were Ubering back from her college. And then right when we got back to the crib, the Uber driver, she looked back at us and she asked us a question. She said, if you guys were to die right now, would you go to heaven or would you go to hell? I had to be honest with myself. I had to look into myself, and I was like, the way I'm living right now, if God was to take my breath away right now, I'm going to hell.
So he deletes most of his old prank videos. He starts doing this to catch a predator style content where he confronts men who supposedly messaged underage girls.
You say you want to kiss your lips while sliding my tongue deep inside as I slowly lick and suck on your clit.
I don't remember, but if it's there, it's there.
And so essentially, JiDion's kind of rebranded himself as a public servant rather than a public nuisance, and it seemed to really work. He's been extremely successful with it. But now with this whole situation with JiDion, you got a lot of his fans saying, oh, it's actually the old him. And what people really seem to be latching on to is the I'm a millionaire comment, which came off as incredibly arrogant, especially given the way that he talked back when he said he turned his life to Christ.
This fortune that I have on earth is nothing compared to the fortune I can have in the kingdom of heaven.
And so now, after the genuinely huge blow up from his arrest and the raw footage genuinely getting posted online by the Code Blue body cam channel, you have people wondering, is JiDion having a second born again moment genuinely?
Genuinely, during the last few weeks, I've done a lot of just inward reflection, and I've been talking to my fiance a lot, and I just kind of came to realize, what I was doing wrong. I was genuinely losing the plot. And while I still don't think I committed a crime, I've come to realize that, genuinely streaming makes me the worst me. You see somebody in the chat say boring or L stream or something like that, and then it flips a switch in you where you want to be more entertaining and you want to, pump up the levels and everything, and you want to entertain.
And he had him saying that, almost every scandal or controversy he's gotten himself into, it's been caused by something he did while he was streaming. Pointing, for example, to his feud with Pokimane, when her stream got flooded with negative comments from people who appear to be JiDion's fans, with her at the time tweeting that the hate women and gaming receive has become so normalized, which JiDion shot back, my dislike for her has nothing to do with her gender, but her as a person. And while he did eventually apologize, it wasn't before Twitch banned him. And then as another example, he pointed to his drama with the Paul brothers when he quit the Prime Squad after beefing with Jake and supporting Logan's opponent in a UFC fight. But anyway, JiDion says that the desire for affirmation, it makes streaming so addictive, and that's what keeps pushing him over the edge.
I have a fragile ego where like I let comments and things people say affect me. And I realized like the last couple of days, I feel like the reason why I got to this point is because I haven't been reading comments. It's because I haven't been looking at videos about me talking about the situation. And it's letting me come to a more clearer view.
Though he also later seemed to contradict himself there, admitting that he has been reading the comments since his arrest.
I've seen some of you guys in the comment section like calling it out, like, JiDion, you're going back to your old self. You know what I mean? Like dibbling, dabbling in pranks and stuff like that. I'm getting spammed up with, I'm a multimillionaire.
You also had him going back and forth on whether this was even an apology video, at first saying,
I'm not on here, you know, apologizing or anything because I don't owe you guys an apology. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't affect any of y'all.
But then later saying,
I do want to apologize for one thing, and that is I apologize for the distractions. I apologize for the slop content, and I apologize for pretty much forgetting about the mission. I need to grow up. I need to take accountability, and I need to mature.
But regardless, he says the conclusion is that he's done.
The shenanigans are stopping. The shenanigans are over. I don't know how to control myself, and so the best way to control myself is to distance myself. I quit streaming. I quit nuisance stuff. I quit all that, and I genuinely just want to do good for society.
Though to be clear, it doesn't seem like he's done making videos, he's just done streaming. In fact, it doesn't even seem like he's done with the Michigan town where all these Skeeter Jean antics took place.
Weirdly enough, bro, I want to go back to Woodhaven, and I want to catch a pred there.
But at least, judging from the reactions online, it appears like a lot of people, including a number of his fans, are not buying it. Right on Reddit, you've got just person after person saying this seems like a desperate effort to avoid jail time. Others believing he's genuine, but doubting that he's actually going to keep his promise. And then on YouTube, at least, all the top comments, they're just dunking on him for the I'm a multimillionaire comment and for using the word genuinely so many times during his apology. Writing things like multi-genuinaire and genuinely maxing as a multimillionaire and 20% apology, 80% genuinely. But then there are also people that say, hey, put JiDion aside, the message of streaming making you want to just make things go crazier and crazier, that is a really core problem that we are seeing online, right? And JiDion's kind of the perfect vessel for that because a lot of what we saw with the pranksters, the nuisance content creators, a lot of that, it's really just evolved into being more streamer heavy, right? People just doing the craziest shit ever in hopes of getting live viewers as well as people clipping the hell out of them because there's a monetary incentive. It also boosts your fame. And so then with that, you've got a number of people looking at whatever happens next with JiDion as maybe being a bit of a forecast for what this means for other creators moving forward. So while we're gonna have to wait to see how all this plays out, in the meantime, I do have to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts about this whole situation here? And then there's more we gotta dive into in just a minute, but first let me thank a sponsor and say, here's a fun fact. Cooking is not the part I avoid. It's really figuring out what to cook that's exhausting, which is why today's sponsor, HelloFresh, makes so much sense to me. I genuinely think that it gets me cooking things I'd probably never make on my own. I don't have to scroll through recipes for half an hour, buy 6 ingredients I'll use one time, and realize halfway through dinner I forgot something at the store. Everything shows up pre-portioned, ready to cook, and so I get the fun part of making dinner without all the planning that usually talks me out of it. And the meals, they don't get repetitive. HelloFresh has more than 80 recipes every month with flavors inspired by places like Vietnam, Morocco, the Caribbean, and more. I'm using ingredients like lemongrass, gochujang, curry paste, things that I probably would have walked right past in the grocery store. Like it's made cooking less like another thing I have to do and more like something I get to do with my kids. So hey, go to HelloFresh.com/DeFranco10FM right now to get 10 free meals and free breakfast for life. 1 per box with active subscription, free meals applied as a discount on your first box. New subscribers only, varies by plan. That's HelloFresh.com/DeFranco10FM to get 10 free meals plus free breakfast for life. Because honestly, nothing hits like home cooking. But then diving right back into the news, Graham Platner, as a politician, the Senate campaign, he might just be done.
Did Graham Platner rape you?
By definition, yes. Absolutely.
Right, so that woman is Jenny Rassicot, and the man that she is now accused of rape is Maine Senate candidate Graham Platner. And he's been a focal point, a lightning rod this campaign season. He was introduced to the political world as a Marine veteran and oyster farmer, and until now, he's been seen as one of the Democratic Party's best hopes for flipping a Republican-held Senate seat in November. But he's been really pushing this progressive populist platform that we've been seeing having success here and there. And at least until now, he's seemingly shed controversy after controversy, with that including things like having a tattoo that looked like a Nazi symbol, offensive online posts that he made over a period of several years, and allegations about his past treatment of women. But you've largely seen his supporters arguing, hey, all of that, it's just a distraction. It's an effort to undermine his campaign. But also, it did seem to be like there was a never-ending fire hose. And so last August, for example, there was that whole scandal. Platner's wife told a senior campaign aide that he had been exchanging sexual messages with other women. But there you had a lot of people going, hey, it's a marriage, their relationship, it's none of our business, it's separate from politics. But then last month, you had the New York Times sharing stories of 3 women who had dated Platner for years and said that he could be demeaning to women and in at least one case, physically threatening. And actually, Jenny Razzacott was one of those women. Right? She described an incident that took place in 2021 in which Platner arrived at her house drunk after she had asked him not to come over. And reportedly, and this is a big thing, she chose not to describe that encounter in any more detail, only saying that she found his behavior to be reckless and unsettling. But then what you had was Platner winning his primary despite all that. And now, roughly a month later, she's come forward with what she says is the full truth of what happened that night, telling Politico and then CNN that Platner forced her to have sex with him despite her repeated objections. Politico also spoke to the man that she dated after Platner, who she had confided to about the alleged assaults, with them reporting that his account of what Razzacott told him matched what she told the outlet. They also spoke to a friend that Razzacott had told about the alleged assault last summer, shortly after Platner launched his campaign, and the friend also recalled Razzacott telling her about the incident, including her saying that Platner had been very drunk and wouldn't take no for an answer. And then in addition to all that, you had Razzacott sharing private years-old Facebook messages in which he told an acquaintance that she had ended up in a, quote, bad situation with Platner and describing him as consensually careless and saying he doesn't listen to you when drunk. And then you also had her explaining that she ended up feeling compelled that she had to come forward after seeing the reaction to the Times story, which was dominated by a controversy about another woman by the name of Lindsay Fifield, whose allegations against Platner, which didn't include sexual assault, being dismissed by a number of people because she's conservative and worked for Republican campaigns. And as far as Razzacott, she noted that she actually agrees with Platner politically, which is also part of why she said she was hesitant to go public in the first place.
That was actually one of the reasons that I didn't come out, more towards the beginning. I do. I really agree with his politics. I think we need somebody with those political stances and who are willing to do the work. I'm just here to tell my story, to give a clearer picture of who he is and the type of past that he has. And I just think it's fair to the democratic process to let people know who they're voting for.
With that, you still quickly had the Platner campaign coming out with a statement seeming to argue that Razzacott's story was politically motivated, saying these allegations are very serious and Graham vigorously denies them. They are also coached and coordinated by out-of-state establishment operatives, and adding, it is not a coincidence that this story comes a week before the ballot deadline, just as the previous false allegations came a week before the primary. No amount of desperate smears will stop this movement from seeing that vision through. And you then had Platner posting a video on social media himself claiming any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically false, but he also seemed to suggest that he's at least considering dropping out.
Regardless of the inaccuracy of the reporting, but mindful of the political reality it will inflict, we are taking the time to reflect on the best path forward for the state that I love, the people that I love, the movement I belong to, and the goal of defeating Susan Collins.
And with all that, you then pretty much had the entire Democratic Party now pushing Platner to remove himself from the race. And so that includes establishment Dems like Senator Chuck Schumer, who was really never a big fan of Platner, to also very progressive supporters like Congressman Ro Khanna and Senator Elizabeth Warren, with Warren saying in a statement, there can be no tolerance for sexual assault. And adding, with so much at stake, the best path forward is for Graham Platner to step aside as the Democratic nominee and address these serious allegations outside the Senate race. And then in addition to the politicians, you had groups like Planned Parenthood Action Fund, the country's largest abortion rights organization, which had recently rallied with Platner, taking back its endorsement, along with others doing the same. Also with this, you had Lindsay Fifield, one of the women who had accused Platner of toxic and physically threatening behavior, slamming Dems for not speaking out against him until now, writing, I actually understand why Democrat leaders didn't take our stories seriously when the Times reported them in June, but are taking them seriously now. It was by design. And then with that, she also slammed the New York Times, accusing them of failing to properly follow up on all the leads that she gave them for verifying her story. And then another reaction that's been getting a lot of attention is from former Republican Congressman and Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, who told Fox News,
the one thing I know about Republicans, when we had a very bad candidate and found out, we didn't vote for that person. Right. We walked away.
For better or for worse.
Yeah. When Matt Gaetz came forward, we got rid of him.
Though, of course, what he seems to be just for some reason forgetting is that Donald Trump, the Republican elected president, besides having faced many accusations of sexual misconduct, has actually been found civilly liable for sexual abuse. Just so we're on the same page, the judge clarified afterward that what the jury found Trump did was in fact rape as commonly understood. But with all this, right, as far as what happens next, Platner, he has only until July 13th to withdraw from this race. And then if he does, the main Democratic Party, they have only until July 27th to replace him. And while there's no official process for selecting a new nominee, party officials have already begun discussing possible plans, with options including a pop-up convention on the weekend of July 25th to choose a nominee, or holding a statewide caucus to basically redo the party's primary election. Though then also with this, you've had someone described as close to the campaign telling the New York Times, if Platner was to step down, it would only be with a guarantee of being replaced by a candidate who he believes is true to the values and vision and policy agenda of the campaign that Maine voted for. And so then with that, we've seen a few names being floated around as possible replacements for Platner, but we're gonna have to wait to see what happens. Right? Whatever happens, like the road forward is incredibly messy, and that's putting it lightly. Right? Dem leadership, they can't just put like Janet Mills back in because the state effectively voted against her and her ideals. So then you're thinking of, what's the candidate out there that's closest to copy pasting the progressive populist agenda that Platner had thrown out there, but in an incredibly tight timeline, while also at the same time, if that were to happen, even if Platner didn't say anything when he dropped out, it would kind of be an unsaid thing that the person that is being accused of being essentially a rapist endorsed this other candidate. But ultimately, we're gonna see how all this plays out together. But then as we wait to see how that plays out, we should then also talk about the outrage that we're seeing around a new platform called Wildfire, right? Because it is a prediction market specifically focused on wildfires in California. And its slogan is, you can't predict fire, but you can trade on it. And you have it positioning itself as a new way to monitor and track fire behavior, with its site explaining, prediction markets harness the wisdom of crowds to surface what models and satellites might miss. Wildfire turns collective intelligence into better wildfire forecasting, one trade at a time. And it is a map of hotspots and ongoing fires, and allows you to wager on whether or not more acres will burn in a certain period of time. And while in its fine print, it does note that right now these wagers aren't real money, it's simulated trading, multiple reports say that the ability to bet with real money is in fact coming soon. And that's prompted a ton of concern, because even though betting on storms and weather isn't new, fire, it's not like rain or wind. Someone can start a fire. In fact, if you look into it, the vast majority of wildfires are caused by humans, at least in some way. And so you had a spokesperson for the US Forest Service saying, systems that tie financial gain to wildfire outcomes risk encouraging misuse, including arson, and are not compatible with our mission. And then they also sort of dismissed its use as a forecasting resource, saying the Forest Service does not use information from prediction markets for wildfire forecasting, and we do not rely on any system that treats wildfire as an event for speculation. Which I will say, I feel insane even having to repeat, because yeah, it feels like an idea so ridiculous and so stupid that it's actually social commentary about what prediction markets actually are. Though also, I do want to know, like, while this platform, it claims to be the first service specifically for trading just on California wildfires, this is not the first time that people have wagered on them. Or you might have seen that there was a ton of controversy last year when the fires in LA, they burned down thousands of people's homes and killed dozens of people. And that's because on Polymarket, you could bet on how far those fires would spread, what neighborhoods the fires would reach, and when they would be contained and more. And so then with that, you had op-eds popping up accusing the site of gamifying the pain and suffering of living, breathing human beings. And actually at the time, Polymarket took a similar angle to what Wildfire is doing now, insisting that the prediction markets can be used as tools, explaining these markets address the same questions being discussed across cable news and X. We've proven that prediction markets can be an invaluable alternative information source for those seeking real-time quantitative data. But then with that, you had people pushing back instead of just saying what I would say of, stop lying, you fucking lying idiots. Instead, you had the LA Times talking to the director of USC's Center for Ethical Leadership and Decision-Making, who said, I have a hard time imagining that people are logging on to Polymarket to decide whether or not to evacuate. And he also said that it opens doors to tons of other issues. Because of course, there's the incentive to start fires, and then on top of that, it could lead to a callous attitude toward others suffering. If we are gamifying life and death issues, it could really negatively influence culture and society in a way we don't like. And then also the timing here is wild because it is currently fire season, and it could actually be a pretty bad one. In the spring, experts warn that the record-breaking snow drought in some areas of the state, it could lead to a worsened fire season as there's gonna be less snow melt and moisture to protect the land. And then on top of that, there was record-breaking heat in March, meaning that vegetation started growing early and then drying out weeks ahead of schedule. So then what do you know? The season came ahead of schedule with fires burning thousands of acres across Southern California in May. But then also, because we have an El Nino event heading California's way this year, the rest of the fire season's kind of up in the air. And honestly, like, this is my take. I think the only prediction market regarding fires like this that I would support would be to bet the over on how many of the people that work for and support wildfire die in a wildfire. That could then maybe be some market manipulation I could get behind, right? No, I'm just joking, legally speaking. And then we've got even more that we got to dive into in just a minute. But first, let me thank a sponsor and say, here is a reminder that scammers have absolutely zero shame. Like the new scam where you get a message saying a loved one's been in an accident, you panic, you click the photo, and instead you install malware that quietly steals your banking information. That's the kind of stuff that makes today's sponsor, NordVPN, feel less optional. NordVPN's, it's become more than just a VPN. It is an all-in-one digital security app with a next generation antivirus that helps stop online threats before they become your problem. And one feature I really like is threat protection, right? It helps block malicious links, dangerous downloads, and scam sites even when I'm not connected to the VPN. Because one bad click, that's all it takes, and I'd rather have another layer of protection than hope that I never make a mistake. Whenever I'm traveling or using hotel or airport Wi-Fi, Nord's already on. It's just part of my routine. And one subscription, it protects up to 10 devices, so my laptop, phone, tablet, and more, they're all covered. Especially as scammers, they're getting better at exploiting fear and urgency, which is exactly why these scams work. So hey, upgrade your online security by scanning that code or going to nordvpn.com/Phil to get an exclusive discount on a 2-year plan plus 4 extra months free when you use my link. That's nordvpn.com/Phil, and it's completely risk-free with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. And then let's dive back into the news, our final block today. More news you need to know, starting with Walmart. Because Walmart, they say they're cutting prices to, quote, make the most of the summer, and you got Trump. He's taking credit for all of it, right? Ground beef, that's dropping by 12%. The price of cherries, that's getting cut in half. Coke, it's going down. Household products, toys, clothes, rollbacks, all over the place. And with this, you had Trump saying on Truth Social, they're doing all this at his administration's request to celebrate our great country's 250th birthday. But as far as Walmart, they haven't responded to his post yet, and their announcement, it didn't mention anything about a conversation with the White House. You're just seeing things like their executive VP saying customers count on Walmart to deliver the value they need every day, so that's why they're making even more investments in price, helping everyone save more. And then this is also weird timing on Trump's part because Walmart was one of the many companies that spoke out against his tariffs last year. Their CEO at the time said the merchandise that we import comes from all over the world. All of the tariff creates cost pressure for us. And so he said higher tariffs were going to result in higher prices, and that is exactly what happened. So as far as Trump at the time, he said Walmart should stop trying to blame tariffs for raising prices. They should eat the tariffs and not charge valued customers anything. And then on top of what many saw as just having a pretty unrealistic take, he then also just generally brushed off affordability issues as fake news.
The word affordability is a con job by the Democrats.
And so while Trump, he's trying to frame all this as a win for his team, you get a lot of people calling BS. And so now what it seems like actually happened is that Walmart, they took the refund money that they got after the Supreme Court shot down Trump's tariffs and used it to cut customers a break. Or because with that money, you had Walmart's chief financial officer saying, we think the single best return that we can have on $1 of capital right now is to invest in the customer and invest in price. And so that's why you might have seen some people out there pushing back on Trump's post saying the price cuts are offset by the tariff refunds the company's getting back from the Trump administration. Or saying that Trump, he's trying to take credit for a solution to a problem that he created. Also in the news, we should talk about how a college football coach was just hit with multiple charges after a freshman collapsed and died during his first day of practice. Because Mark Kolbus was a strength and conditioning coach for Bucknell University's football team. And that day at practice, he forced Calvin Dickey Jr. and the rest of the players to do 100 up-downs along with some full-body plank drills. And that's after officials said that other coaches told Kolbus those exercises were unsafe and adding that they went against the training he got from the university as well. Right? And Dickey, he had sickle cell, he was visibly struggling with the drills reportedly, but Kolbus, he didn't step in to help until he'd already passed out, according to Pennsylvania AG Dave Sunday. With Dickey then eventually being taken to the hospital, though he died 2 days later. And what the autopsy showed you is that he had given in to complications from his sickle cell in combination with the training exercises, his weight, and other issues. And with that, Sunday said that Kolbus had put Dickey through an intentional deliberate hazing. And so he's now been charged with felony aggravated hazing, and Sunday saying, this law exists because it recognizes what hazing is. Criminal conduct that in the best possible scenario humiliates and dehumanizes an individual. And at its worst, takes lives and leaves families and friends forever devastated. Right along with that charge, Kolbus is facing misdemeanor counts of involuntary manslaughter and reckless endangerment. Though his attorney said the strength and conditioning program was appropriate and in accordance with the training that Mr. Kolbus received. And adding there are facts and other circumstances surrounding this matter that once presented at the appropriate time will demonstrate that Mr. Kolbus did not commit the crimes charged. But for now, his bail is set for $10,000 and there's a preliminary hearing set for July 28th. And then the last bit of news today is that there's another lawsuit against DHS. Right, and this time, we got a guy by the name of David Striever who claims that they violated his First Amendment rights by tracking him down over an email that he sent to former ICE Director Todd Lyons. Right, in response to Renee Good and Alex Preddy's deaths, Striever told him he was a monstrous human being, comparing him to a Nazi who oversaw the secret police, saying you will seek to lose yourself to escape the burden of knowing the truth about yourself, but wherever you go, you will find yourself. You will torment yourself until your last day on earth. Right, and that was back in January. So when DHS agents came looking for him a few weeks ago, about 5 months later, he said, writing an email to the head of ICE seemed like the least I could do to express my sense of outrage. I never dreamed it would lead to a knock on my door by federal officers or descending on my hotel in the dark of night. And he was actually on a trip to Finland with his daughter when they first showed up at his house, and they left his wife with a written warning for him, saying that the email he sent was considered a threat and that he may have violated federal law. And well, his wife told the agents when he'd be back that apparently just wasn't soon enough. Because then agents tried to confront him at a New York City hotel before he could even make it home. But there, you had the hotel staff turning them away. So that same night, they reportedly hit him with call after call, leaving him voicemails trying to get in touch. He even had to tell his 7-year-old daughter that he might get confronted on the way home, which he said brought her to tears, saying that she didn't want them to kill him. And now you've got his legal team firing back, saying, if someone is really threatening a government official, you don't wait 5 months to act on it. The fact that authorities didn't respond immediately shows that Striever presented no threat. And while you have DHS saying they investigate all threats towards employees and officers like Lyons, they haven't actually specified why Striever's email was considered a credible threat in the first place. And so with that, you also had his legal team saying, America Americans have a clear right to criticize government officials. When federal agents come to your door and ask you to stop engaging in political speech, it's an act of intimidation that the Constitution doesn't tolerate. And that is when you had Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen, who's also named in the lawsuit, claiming any allegation that DHS and its components are attempting to squash free speech is categorically false. And while we're going to have to see what happens with the courts, as far as Striever's take on all this, he says, "I cherish our right to speak openly about issues of public concern. I hope others will not be discouraged from peacefully expressing their views, even when those views are critical of the government." And that, my friend, you beautiful bastard, I think is a fantastic place to end. You might be tired of the bullshit, emotionally exhausted, but never let them make you shut up. Well, you still have the choice and the ability. Use those. But with that said, thank you for watching this Tuesday Philip DeFranco show. I love yo faces, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.